Well, my name is Jarvis, and welcome to Voices on the Journey. Today we have Joe Bridi. Welcome.
Thank you, Jarvis. Thank you for hosting me on your podcast.
Salam.
Salam alaikum.
And Pastor Micah and Pastor Sarah work with me at the Journey Church, and I know that they were on a study time in Lebanon, and they want to say a big hello.
Yeah, hello to them too.
And Joe, you're with the Lebanon National Field Staff. Can you tell us in a couple of sentences what your role is with them?
Yes, Jarvis, I've joined the CBM, the Canadian Baptist Ministries, almost 2 years ago. And my role is to mainly support the graduates from the Arab Baptist Theological Seminary, which is a partner with the CBM through the main organization, which is the Lebanese Society for Education and Social Development. So this is my main role, to support graduates from the Arab Baptist Theological Seminary that come from all over the Middle East and North Africa to study theology in Lebanon. And once they go back home, this is where we step in and try to find ways we can support their ministry through their local churches.
That's a big role to fill, but an exciting role. And I see that you just posted on Facebook about the kingdom. You know, as the church, we bear witness to the kingdom. We anticipate the kingdom. And how do you see yourself bearing witness to the kingdom in Lebanon?
Well, we do that in two ways. We proclaim the gospel by sharing the word of God with the lost among us. This is one way of sharing the gospel. But another way is to, through acts of mercy and love, like the ministry within the most vulnerable, the displaced families that we're doing, the ministry among the Syrian refugees. What we've been doing so far as a church since August 4, the date of the explosion in the port of Beirut, we've been going down to Beirut and helping people by renovating their homes and even buying appliances that they've lost during the explosion. So mainly, and what I believe is has attracted me to CBM, is proclaiming the kingdom in word and deeds.
Excellent. And rumor has it that the kingdom has impacted your story. You have a story to share, and I was wondering if you could just take a few minutes and share how God has turned your world right side up.
Yeah, well, in 2 or 3 minutes, I'll try to do it even in less than that.
We'll do another Zoom call just for that too.
Yeah, well, Jesus revealed himself to me in 2001. I was 23 years old, and I was fighting a drug addiction. I had been addict for 4 or 5 years when I met a group of believers that used to come to our house and have Bible study with my sister. So this is where I was confronted with the Bible, the gospel, and I refused it at the beginning, but they were insisting on sharing the gospel with me. I used to play music, guitar with a band. We used to play black metal. I would say I had Satanist thoughts, and I didn't believe that God was in control of the world. I did believe that Satan was in control of the world. But to make the story short, I fought with my drug addiction. I went through a couple of times I wanted to commit suicide. I went through overdoses, but at the end, I felt like There was a special meaning for life, and I had missed it. So these young men and women were sharing the gospel with me, and on one night I attended one of their celebrations, and it was there that I came to the front when there was an altar call, and I prayed. I decided to follow Christ. And that evening was a turning point in my life because God healed me from my addiction right that night. I went back home and threw out all the drugs I had and decided to follow Christ. And this is what I've been doing since 2001, following Jesus.
So did you grow up in the Christian church, or what was your religious background before this conversion?
It's quite different because I grew up as a Catholic, but I never understood what it means to be a Christian until I met with Christ, until I started reading the Bible on my own and discovering God by my own and through the church uh, that I'm part of now. But growing up, I used to go to a Catholic church from time to time until I was 14 years old. My dad had committed suicide, and 2 years later, I went to the priest and I asked him, why did God allow my dad to die this way? And he said, we don't know, but this is God's will. And that was the turning point in my life. I said, if this is God's will for my dad to die this way, then I don't want God.
Was this happening in Lebanon?
Yeah, yes.
Yes, okay.
I've grown up and lived in Lebanon, and I'm still living in Lebanon so far.
Great. And it's amazing how God is using your story to share the beauty of the gospel with others all around you.
Well, this is our part in the kingdom, to share our story so that people would understand more who God is and what God wants from them.
Absolutely. Well, Lebanon has a history of hardship with politics and economics. And then you had this terrible explosion 2 months ago that apparently had a 15-kilometer radius to it,
Yep.
destroying hospitals and homes. As the church, how are you responding to reconstruction and people's mental health during this time?
First, it was very obvious for us that this is a time for the church to be there on the ground. So we went there the first days and we started cleaning the rubble, visiting people that needed help. And a week later, we decided that not only cleaning, we need to help people renovate their house. Because when in October 17, 2019, a very big economical crisis started in Lebanon. And the Lebanese pound started to devaluate at a high speed. We've lost so far, the Lebanese pound has lost so far 80% of its power of purchase against the dollar. So in few words, the person who used to get $1,000 per month in Lebanese pounds worth now gets around $100, $200 per month, which makes it impossible for people to, even those who had a decent job, makes it impossible for them to renovate their homes. It's very expensive now. So with the help of partners that decided to step in and help us, we as churches have started the work. And we've been going from home to home, helping people by fixing their glass, installing new windows, changing their entrance doors, giving them food, giving them food vouchers to buy food from the supermarket. And some churches who have counselors and psychological experts among them have now hotlines where someone in need can call and get some help through the phone. There are some churches and some organizations that have done camps for kids since August till now, and one of them is Skilled. Skilled is part of the Lebanese Society for Education and Social Development. They had like a 3 days outdoor camp for kids where they could come safely, enjoy their time, talk to a counselor, and just get out of this mood and try to get rid of this trauma they've lived through this explosion.
Well, it certainly sounds like the church is being the church in Lebanon, and that's very powerful.
Yep.
Are people still living in fear?
Well, yes, there are people that are still living in fear, and especially in Beirut, the areas that are very close to where the blast happened. When we go there, people share with us that they fear something would happen every minute. We had a saying in Lebanon. We used to live day by day. Now we don't. Now we live hour by hour. We don't live day by day anymore. People fear many things. The central bank might stop subsidizing for necessities like fuel, medicine, wheat. So we live with this fear. We might wake up tomorrow finding that the central bank doesn't support these necessities anymore. So the prices will skyrocket. Many people wouldn't be able to afford buying medicine anymore. So yeah, people live in fear in Lebanon. We do.
You said in one interview, we cannot express the message of hope and love if we don't help others. Can you unpack that for us? I think it's a beautiful statement.
Well, we get it from the master. This is God's message. God's message to the world is love. He loves the world. So God left the heavens and came to the world as a human, lived among us. He healed the sick. He raised the dead. He fed the hungry. And this is how Jesus demonstrated the Father's love to people. This is how I believe the church should be demonstrating the love of God to people. It's not only about preaching on Sunday a message of love. It's not sharing on Facebook some verses of love, or even sometimes sharing a message of condemnation of sin. We have to live this love. People need to see it on the ground. Jesus did this so that people would see God, and still some didn't. We have to do it. This is our role as Jesus' disciples, to walk the walk he did before.
I heard it said that you cannot hate people and reach people at the same time.
No, it's impossible. It's impossible. And we've experienced this actually in Lebanon. I don't know if we're getting there in our talk, but I can share about how healing happened in the church towards the Syrians when the conflict or the war in Syria started. If you want, we can talk about it now.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Lebanon has a long history of adversity with Syria. We were at war with Syria at some point. And there was this hate relationship between Lebanese and Syrians. When the war started in Syria and the Syrians started coming to Lebanon, many Lebanese, I among them, questioned ourselves, what do we do now? How do we react to this? How do we deal with Syrians? It was very hard. And God convicted us. We knew that we had a role to play there. We knew that we needed to help in some way. But at the same time, having these emotions towards them wouldn't help. So the Spirit uh, healed us as Christians in our churches and started this work of repentance among us. I remember that when our church decided to support the refugees in our community, my first reaction was, no way I was going to go there. But then when I started seeing the work there and seeing how others in the church are enjoying what they're doing and how God is using them, I remember I said, Father, forgive me for these feelings I have and these emotions I have towards Syrians. And I decided to step in. This is my story, but there are a lot of other stories. There are people who lost loved ones during the war in Lebanon because of the Syrian government. But they're now helping the camps. So answering your question, no, you can't hate and serve at the same time. There must be healing at a certain point, and I'm happy and I'm glad that I experienced this healing. And I know that any believer who wants to serve the Lord will experience some sort or some kind of healing so that he would be able to do his ministry faithfully.
Do you have an idea of the number of Syrian people that you have helped as a church in Lebanon? There must be thousands of Syrians that you've helped join this Syrian refugee camp.
We have around 1.5 million Syrian refugees, or maybe more now.
1.5 million?
Yes.
Wow.
The Lebanese population is 4.5 million. We have 1.5 million Syrian refugees in Lebanon.
And the church, do you know the number, how many people are serving in that capacity?
I think we've served most of them. Maybe 80 to 90% of the refugees community.
Wow.
The church has served so far. Yeah.
So have you been serving in this way for the last 5 years?
Yes, I have been. I have been doing this for the past 5 years. Since 2017, I'm through my local church, I'm leading the outreach ministry and specifically the ministry with the Syrian refugees. But I was doing that before on a personal and through the church level.
I know here in Atlantic Canada, I've worked with a few Syrian refugees, and one lady, she was Muslim when she came over, and she said, because I experienced the love of Christ over here, she took off her head covering and said, I'm going to follow Jesus. Have you seen those stories? Have you seen Muslim families change their lives and turn to Jesus during this time?
Every day, there is a Syrian person who decides to follow Jesus because of the work of the church. We've seen this. Every church in Lebanon that's serving among the refugees has experienced the turning back from Muslims to Jesus. Yes, and sometimes the church doesn't even have a role in this. Sometimes they come and receive a food voucher and go back home, and they have dreams. And they come back and they say, I saw Jesus in my dream, and he asked me to come to this church and follow him. It's happening.
That seems to be a common thing, Muslims having dreams and turning their lives over to him.
Yeah. And this is God's way. And in this way, he shows us that he's still doing his work among us. And it's very particular to Muslims seeing dreams because they believe in dreams. Dreams are very important to the Muslims. So when God reveals himself through a dream to a Muslim, it's life-changing for them. They don't hesitate.
Hmm. I remember reading in Leviticus 19, when a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. The foreigner among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you yourselves were foreigners in Egypt.
Yeah.
And you're displaying this amazing love to the people around you, and that's a powerful witness to the
And
world.
this verse, actually, Jarvis, was the verse that motivated us as a church through one of our own who read this verse and said, this is what we should be doing with the Syrian refugees.
This is your mission statement.
Yeah.
And I think the way we love people is the best evidence that the tomb was empty.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Well, it's an amazing work that you're doing. And how can we as a church in Canada help you? Maybe financially, maybe you need some people to come over. What comes to your mind when I ask that question in light of this recent crisis? And maybe it's helping with the Syrian refugees as well.
Well, first, what comes to mind is that the church in Canada has been doing so much with Lebanon through all the crises we've been through. The Syrian refugees crisis, and then the COVID, the economical, and now the blast. We're grateful and thankful for the churches in Canada. You guys have been doing, sometimes we're speechless. We have a great support from Canada coming from the churches in Canada. What you can be doing is praying for the church in Lebanon, because the church is made of people, and these people are now suffering. The people in the church are suffering. We need strength to continue doing what we're doing. We need to keep our eyes and our hope on Jesus to continue doing what we're doing. I'm not gonna I'm gonna say it, and yes, we do need financial support to continue doing what we're doing, because the country is in total crisis. Prices are soaring high every day. Prices change in Lebanon. So there are many needs, but I guess that you were praying for us, continuing in your support that you have been providing is great. And I think it will make a very, very big difference.
Do you get a lot of help from the government in Lebanon, or is it all left to the church to care for all these different areas?
Let me say it to you this way. The government has robbed us. So we don't expect to get anything back from the government.
So you need that partnership with people all over the world to continue your mission in Lebanon. Well, Joe, I want to say a huge thank you for taking time to share what's happening in your country. Thank you for being a bright light of hope. There's a Christian scholar that passed away several months ago, and he said, when you truly know God, you have an energy to serve him. And it's evidence that you guys know God and you have this energy. That's a challenge to us here in Canada. And it's a wake-up call for us to be the church wherever we go. So thank you so much, and God bless you as you continue to serve him.
Thank you, Jarvis, and big thanks to all the churches in Canada for the amazing support they've been providing us so far.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Ma salama.
Ma salama.